Okay, here we go. This is, I guess I'm gonna kind of do a video on guitar cabinet speaker design, but it's gonna be, somewhat revolving around the barefaced cabinets and this new design I have. I'm also, this is kind of like a copyright EPS thing, because I thought of a simple way to do a very crude waveguide in half-inch plywood, just with layers and these phase plug boards. There's clearance there. Don't worry about it. Anyhow, anybody building a cab can do a one-off like this. That's no problem. You just can't produce them, mass produce them, without talking to me about it. Okay, this constitutes copyright. So, anyways, so I'll start with the waveguide. This is for something I designed for my OH05. It's kind of like a prototyping for this waveguide. It's a little 5-watt amp with 6 screw bolts in the bottom, and I'm gonna have to route in just a little bit on the other side. It's like a flip top, like an Ampeg flip top. It's a Fender dog bone, and you have these 4 screws. You take out the 4 screws. You flip the thing over, the amps on the underside, and then the amps on the top. And I had to have these keys in there because otherwise, if it gets put in the wrong way, then the output transformer will hit the back of the speaker unless it goes in this way, with this being the back of the amp and the controls being up here. So I had to do it like that. Anyhow, yeah, it's like an Ampeg flip top. Back to the waveguide. 5-watt amp. These are those PRV 8-inch speakers. No cone modes. It's kind of hard to get a speaker that you get much cone modes out of a 5-watt amp, anyways. It's kind of hard to juice him, but I mean, like a Celestion G12 Blue. Yeah, probably very lightly. But I'm probably gonna layer with plugins. I got the Apollo UAD. I get that GAV 19T. Awesomeness. And the Ampeg B15N. So I'll have 2 plug-in amps and 1 real amp that I'm gonna record with when I finally get my guitar wired and everything done. I don't know. Someday. Anyways, the idea here now, this couldn't be Tolexed. And I think that's probably a reason nobody's done anything like this before, because it's just not Tolexable. Well, I mean, it would be, but it would be just too much. But a speaker like this could be mass produced in that, you just done a CNC wood mill. And you just cut out all the parts and it goes together like a puzzle. Everything locks together and bing bang boom. There's 2 notches in here. This is like a finished filleted version of the. I have all the flat parts in another file, but it's notched out here on either side. A notch here all the way through, and that just fits in there. It's glued and banged in there. But I'm just gonna do a truck bed liner. I can get truck bed liner in a nice gray like that. So that's the way I'm going. EAW's got this stuff. I don't know how the heck they do that. Eastern Audio Works, they have that. Somebody told me it's an epoxy. It's just beautiful finish. And it's so hard. They don't even have to use corners. The metal corners. They don't have to use them. I figure, well, I'll try this truck bed liner and see how it holds up. But this is not really a road cabinet. This is a studio cabinet. I top out. I'll top out about 109 dB at 1 meter. A little over 3 feet from the speaker. 109 dB. That's absolute max. So it's a small gig. Maybe maybe social gathering gigs and stuff like that, where I keep up with a relaxed drummer, kind of. and it's 100. It'll be about a dB 1 watt 1 meter, and then the 5 watt tube. 5 watt tube, I figure is about 109 with all the compression and everything like that. Some guitar speaker manufacturers do not publish the Thiel small parameters. There's this thing about that, and Celestion says, well, and what Celestion says goes, of course, the guitar speaker grows, and it's like, well, guess what? Eminence publishes the small parameters, and I like that, and the Eminence, they make some nice 8s, but with this, I'm just trying to get the, if I'm not gonna really have any cone modes, I just want it to be really punchy and really tight and really there. The group delay, and then too with the light cone, if the group delay is up higher, like it's in the 100 hertz region, sometimes it's, with the 8s, it'll go up to like 140. But the thing is the further it is up, the less group delay it is in total, because the cone is very light, and it'll kind of start coming up, and then it'll flatten out like this, and it's just kind of this wonk in there. And it's not bad if it's a fairly strong magnet. That's why I like the QTS numbers, because that tells me so much. But then too, I can look at the motor size. If it's a strong magnet, like Weber will publish the magnet weights, and you can kind of figure, El Nico to ceramic is different, but El Nico is more powerful for the weight of the magnet, and these are neodymium, of course. And I don't even know the magnet weight there, but I can look at the QTS and I go, that's a strong motor. And a strong motor isn't a strong motor. You actually have less bass, and a weak motor you'll have less bass at the speaker's resonant frequency. You'll have less bass, but a weak motor you'll have a lot of bass, at the resonant frequency, but it's very uncontrolled, and it'll fart, like Jensen. Sometimes if you push too much wattage into them, or you bring the bass up too much, they'll fart. They really will. But a lot of people like those speakers because it saves amplifier headroom, for one thing, and that I can understand. That every guitarist can understand that. And the other reason is kind of a subjective thing. Some people just like that smudgy bass sound. The smudgy low frequencies, strings, smudgy low frequency notes. That's a matter of taste, and guitar cabinets are, and that's why Celestion says, speaker cabinet design, guitar speaker cabinet design. There's no rules. You just stick a speaker in a box. There's some other videos on YouTube about it, just observations and things like that. But I've done pro audio design. I've done everything from, oh gosh, there's one speakers I built at 418s in a line, an exponential, and a giant freaking ribbon tweeter, and oh my god, I've done all kinds of stuff. Folded horns, closed backs, open backs, crossovers. Well, not closed back, open back for guitar cabinets. But I've done, ported cabinets, crossovers, stuff like that. But, there's a lot to speaker cabinet design that can kind of come into play with guitar cabinets, and I don't understand why some guitar speaker manufacturers do not publish any data at all. Either you just got to go, but you got to read the reviews and look at the amps that people are putting those speakers in. Like somebody will be like, I got this amp and I put this speaker in it and it sounds like this, and I'll try to explain it, and then you gotta kind of look up the different amps and the different cabinets they're putting it in, and kind of figure it out that way. What it's gonna sound like. Me, I'm poor. I can't afford to have play roulette with speakers, and I have a very small house. I can't afford the space to have a bunch of speakers around that I'm not using. So I got to make decisions, and I have to stick to them. This will double as a stool. I could have went. I do actually have another cabinet design. I suppose I could see if I could pull that one up here. This is the silver one I started with, the silver 10, the Weber silver 10. I didn't finish this one, but it's about the same volume, but it just takes up more floor space. And I'm sitting here going, it's a 20 and 30 watt option, and it was like, well, I got a 5 watt amp. Am I really gonna get cone modes out of a cone that's optionally designed to go to 30 watts? That's 6 times as much. If it was, I like the speakers about twice. Some people say, a bit over. It should be over. It shouldn't be the same amount. You should always have more speaker handling than you do tube amp. I've heard people say you can have the same. No, don't do it. I've blown speakers. Same amplifier power, same handling. I have fried speakers. Okay, it's. I've heard people say 10 watts over. That works, as long as you're over a little bit. Anywhere, if you want cone modes, and you do have to think. They say they'll. That's one nice thing about speaker manufacturers. They'll always say early breakup, or later breakup, or mediocre breakup. It's they're kind of describing where the cone modes come in, and you have to think about that. How much cone modes do I want? And a lot of times, guys buying different guitar speakers. sorry. They're trying to get their cone mode breakup where they want it, dynamically speaking, and that's why people toy around with a lot of speakers, because they're trying to get those cone modes to come in, just before their amp starts cracking up, or just after their amp starts cracking. It's usually never. It's either before or after that people generally like it. And some people don't like cone modes at all, I guess. And then that was the thing with the EVM 12L on my last video. I was just freaking out because it's like, I don't know. I listen to music like, who doesn't like freaking Cliffs of Dover, right? It's amazing that there's such a varied. It just goes to show that guitar cabinets and speakers are very subjective. And if you think about it, an electric guitar has a body, but that's not the resonator. On an acoustic, it is. The body is the resonator. But on an electric guitar, the body is not the resonator. You have an external resonator, and that's your cabinet and your speaker. So it's kind of part of the sound of the instrument. So, and this cabinet I'm going to be building, I am going to be recording, and I thought, well, a silver 10 would be nice. I might be able to get a little bit of cone mode action late. And then I thought to myself, I don't know. It's a hard choice for me, because whatever it is, I got to live with it. But this is the one I started for the silver 10. I did the same thing where I got the Oral X in the bottom. I don't know if I talked about that on either one yet. I'll get back there. But this is the 10-inch one, and it's I'd have to recheck this all over again, because I stopped on it, and I'd have to double check this. I don't think this is big enough right here. This would have to probably be up here. I usually run quarter SD damped. open back, because I kind of like to try to get kind of between the closed back and an open back, but it is difficult. I'm gonna go back to this other one here. Okay, here's the 2x8. Um, Anyhow, this waveguide is kind of like trying to do kind of what Barefaced audio is doing with it. They have that horn in the back, it's not a horn. It's like a line. It's like a line, uh, like kind of like a horn. I can't remember what they call it. They have a name for it, and it makes sense. But what he's doing there is he's pulling. It's freaking genius. They're pulling. What's driving that line is the waves at the center of the cabinet. So all the standing waves problems are off to the side and out of the way, and then two that it's not parallel, that makes it so there isn't a standing wave, but there's going to be some in there, and it's just really brilliant. It's super simple and pretty good, but that wraps the high frequency around, and this is going like a cannon. Guitar speakers are. The sound guy can't fix that. And it's like, well, yeah, guitars like the amps a little bit louder because, otherwise you get, the front line is delayed back to the back, or the monitors, the mains are delayed back to the back line. And, guitars don't like it if the slapback from the monitor is louder than the guitar amp. It does throw you. It's just like playing with a delay, latency. It's almost like it's like playing with latency. But that's why I think 15, 20 watt tube amps are fine for anything. I don't know why people need 100 watt tube amps. Unless you're playing at Coliseum or outdoor gigs. 90%, a 15 watt amp will do freaking 90% of gigs. I mean, there's so many good guitars, let's face it. There's a lot of good guitars. There's a lot of good musicians, and there's a lot of good bands. And that just equates to smaller venues. So, what's I getting this? I gotta stand this guitar cabinet design. Anyhow, the speaker cabinet combination is the electric guitar's resonator. It's like part of the guitar sound. The other thing is the electronics and the pickups. Assuming your guitar is solid, and they are, it comes down to the electronics and the amp, of course the amp and the speakers and stuff. I can get a lot of problems with modelers, but I've always wanted to have a good tube amp that I could afford to maintain. And this OAH05, it's a little 5 watt. I can do that. Tube swap isn't too bad, and I get good tubes that last a while. And I'm just gonna use this for studio stuff and just practicing. I could probably even use it rehearsal. With a drummer that played light. So, or an electronic drums. I would if I got in a band, it'd probably be with somebody with an E-kit anyways, and then it's just they're just plugged into a monitor and you just match the volumes. It's no big deal. It's a lot easier. Let's see. This standing wave. The reason I went with the Orlex in the bottom there was I'll pull this top off here. Oh, I got these in there. Yeah, I got some lines in there because I was making sure the amp was gonna fit. But I got this Orlex in the bottom. It's a 2-inch Orlex. and that is to take out this standing wave because it's at 360 hertz between this top up here and the bottom down here, and that would cause problems with the emissions here. So I just decided to knock that one out. I don't think that's wrong of me. It's a problem solving thing. If somebody was building a guitar cabinet like this with something like this, they wouldn't actually. Yeah, because 360 hertz. That's why they make them shorter. But see, the thing is I can get this to break off this way more. It'll still kind of wrap around. I'll have one cancellation here, another cancellation between here and there, and then I'll have the third one that comes around here. But that's going to be summing. Okay, because that's like 120 hertz. Actually, this will be summing here too, but it'll also be canceling at different frequencies. This will sum. This will sum. So I'll have some spikes, and I'll have, and then it's at different frequencies. It depends on the frequency in question. Like here, 120 to 130 hertz, because this top speaker is a shorter distance. It's a shorter half wave than the bottom speaker, going around like that. So it's 120 to 130 hertz lift, probably 3 dB, because I'm going to have some, approximately, it's approximate. It's going to break off this way too, and the pressure wave's going to move around the short way, and a lot of energy will be lost this way and this way and this way. So I'll probably get potentially 6 dB a lift, but there's losses, so it's not going to be 6 dB a lift, maybe up to 3 dB a lift, 120, 130. So you see, I think about these things, but that has to do with box dimensions. That doesn't have to do with speaker parameters. Speaker parameters have to do with how much air the speaker, the compliant equivalent, the suspension's compliance equivalent air volume, or VAS, is something that kind of tells you how much air the speaker wants. It's hard to explain. I guess I have books on it and stuff. I'm a speaker designer, but if you design, well, if you don't have the parameters, you just read the reviews and stuff like that. If you are into speaker design, you already know. If you're concerned about it, you can look at other cabs and stuff like this. This is the 3/4 cubic foot. But it's an open back. That's technically an open back. That's 1/4 SD. SD is the area of the cone. 1/4 of the SD total between this speaker and that speaker. That's what I figure minimum for an open back is 1/4. Half is adequate. Quite. You don't want to go smaller than 1/4, is what I'm saying. For an open back. It's all subjective, and it really is. But there are some principles that apply. Obviously, acoustic design. See, that's the thing is I gotta try to nail it. I can't afford a pile of speakers. I can't afford the space for a pile of speakers. So I really can't afford a pile of speakers that I'm not using. I gotta figure this out and do it. So that's gonna come out sounding the way I want it to. And anyhow, I don't know if I do produce this, it would be a 2x10. This video is probably long enough. Anyways, speaker cabinet design is both simple and complicated, but it's like you're designing for chaos. You want the comb filtering, so that it sits in the mix and the instruments can poke through. And that's kind of what Barefaced has got nailed. Is they got this coming around like this, and it's like one distance and different frequencies, and that's what's gonna give. I've never seen the response curve on a Barefaced cab, but I'm sure it's jagged, and that's what you want with a guitar cabinet. You want it to be like a resonator, like it has different accentuated frequencies, and then other frequencies are, subdued. That makes it transparent in the mix. If it sits good in the mix, it's a good guitar cabinet. And that's kind of why I went 2x here, because the 2x is going to give me cancellations to the mic. I'll get nice comb filtering in the top, and I got a good solid bass here, and I'll get a couple of little lumps in the mids, and some other comb filtering. I think it's gonna be a good sounding cabinet. Just in general, I just kind of run the numbers on it, and it's vague, but it makes sense. It all makes sense to me. So I'm gonna go with this one. I think it'll be loud enough. It'll be good for recording. I'm using plugins, so I'm not gonna worry about it. Anyways, that's the end of my video. I'm gonna call that done, and talk to you guys later.